On Sister, Sister, everything always ended with family, laughter, and a sense of safety. But 29 years later, that illusion collapses fast. Behind the familiar smiles came miscarriages, violent trauma, career free falls, and deaths that froze families in place. The transformation isn't just surprising, it's painful. Join us as we uncover who they really were and honor the legacies they left behind. Tamera Mowry as Tia Landry. Tia Dashawn Mowry was born on July 6, 1978, in Gelnhausen, West Germany. At 16 years old, Tia Mowry played Tia Landry, the more introspective, emotionally aware twin who grounded the humor of the show, in Sister, Sister, 1994 to 1999. That role was not just the heart of the series, but the foundation of her entire life. Her marriage once looked like the rare Hollywood success story that actually lasted. For 14 years, she built a life with actor Corey Hardrict, raising 2 children while juggling work, motherhood, and public expectation. When the marriage quietly fractured, the emotional toll spilled into her body and mind. Postpartum depression, chronic exhaustion, and the silent pressure of being the strong one left her isolated long before the divorce papers were filed. The split in 2022 exposed years of private struggle she had hidden behind smiles and productivity. While continuing to work on projects like The Game and Family Reunion, she was navigating co-parenting, loneliness, and the grief of watching a shared future disappear in slow motion. The decision to walk away wasn't dramatic. It was a final act of self-preservation after enduring years of emotional depletion. In 2025, at 47 years old, Tia Mowry is rebuilding her life on her own terms, choosing fewer roles and more control. With an estimated net worth of $4 million, she now prioritizes healing, motherhood, and personal balance, no longer defined by the twin America grew up with, but by the woman who survived what came after. Marques Houston as Roger Evans. Marques Barrett. Houston was born on August 4, 1981, in Los Angeles, California. At 13 years old, Marques Houston played Roger Evans, the loud, relentless neighbor whose humor became a signature rhythm of the series, in Sister, Sister, 1994 to 1999. That character made him unforgettable, locking his face into the memory of a generation before he had time to grow into himself. As he moved into adulthood, his career fractured into multiple directions at once. Music with Immature and IMX brought success, followed by films like You Got Served and Fat Albert, but momentum became harder to sustain as public taste shifted. Behind the scenes, long-standing industry controversies began to cloud his name, slowly separating the performer. The most damaging blow came not from his work, but from his personal life. In 2020, his marriage to a woman 20 years younger ignited fierce backlash that eclipsed everything else he had done. Every explanation, every denial, every attempt to move forward was met with louder suspicion, turning his private choices into a permanent public trial that reshaped how his entire career was interpreted. Now, at 44 years old, Marques Houston continues working quietly as a producer, writer, and independent artist while raising his children. With an estimated net worth of $5 million, his life stands in stark contrast to the carefree teenager audiences once laughed with, proof that fame can follow you forever, but forgiveness does not always arrive with it. Tamera Mowry Housley as Tamera Campbell. Tamera Darvette Mowry Housley was born on July 6, 1978, in Gelnhausen, West Germany. At 16 years old, Tamera Mowry played Tamera Campbell, the outgoing, impulsive suburban twin, in Sister, Sister, 1994 to 1999. That role opened every door for her, but it also set the stage for challenges that would unfold far from the camera. Years later, Her life appeared settled when she married Adam Housley, a Fox News journalist, in 2011. Together, they welcomed 2 children, Aiden and Araya. Yet behind the family image, Tamera was quietly enduring endometriosis, a painful condition that complicated her ability to conceive and left her living with chronic physical distress. The strain of illness, motherhood, and constant public composure slowly accumulated. Then tragedy struck without warning. In 2018, Elena Housley, Adam's niece, was killed in the mass shooting at the Borderline Bar and Grill in California, plunging Tamera into deep grief. While still working on projects like Twitches and appearing on The Real, she was carrying a level of sorrow that permanently altered her emotional world. Today, at 47 years old, Tamera Mowry Housley chooses her work carefully, prioritizing healing and stability over constant exposure. With an estimated net worth of $4 million, she moves forward shaped by marriage, illness, and loss, no longer performing resilience, but living it. Jackée Harry as Lisa Landry. Jacqueline Yvonne Jackée. Harry was born on August 14, 1956, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. At 38 years old, Jackée Harry played Lisa Landry, the glamorous, outspoken adoptive mother who gave the show its adult backbone, in Sister Sister, 1994 to 1999. The role reminded audiences of her power, even as her career had already weathered dramatic highs and lows. Away from the spotlight, her personal life was marked by disappointment rather than drama. She married composer Jerry Jemmett, then later Elgin Charles Williams, a relationship that ended in divorce in 2003 and left her raising her adopted son, Frank, largely on her own. After 2 failed marriages, Jackée made a deliberate choice to stop chasing romantic stability and focus instead on surviving emotionally and professionally. That focus was tested by an unforgiving industry. After winning an Emmy for 227, a historic achievement, roles became smaller and less secure, forcing her to accept whatever work kept her visible, from Everybody Hates Chris to long-running soap roles like Days of Our Lives. Each job carried the weight of reinvention. Now, at 69 years old, Jackée Harry continues acting with the authority of someone who endured being overlooked and kept going anyway. With an estimated net worth of $6 million, her legacy is defined not by one iconic role, but by a lifetime of persistence after the applause faded. Tim Reid as Ray Campbell. Timothy Lee Reid Sr. was born on December 19, 1944, in Norfolk, Virginia. At 50 years old, Tim Reid played Ray Campbell, the disciplined, principled father whose authority grounded the blended family, in Sister Sister, 1994 to 1999. The role gave the sitcom its moral spine and extended his relevance into a new era, and that stability would soon be tested off-screen. After divorcing his first wife, Rita Ann Sykes, in 1980, Reid rebuilt his personal life with actress Daphne Maxwell Reid, whom he married in 1982 and remains with today, a partnership that endured while professional risks mounted. As he pivoted from acting into directing and producing, opening his own studio and backing ambitious projects, financial pressure crept in. Creative control came with economic uncertainty. The stress deepened as leadership replaced limelight. Balancing fewer on-camera roles with behind-the-scenes responsibility, Reid carried the weight of payrolls, production setbacks, and uneven returns, even as his earlier successes like WKRP in Cincinnati and Frank's Place continued to define public memory. The work never stopped, but the margins narrowed, demanding patience and resilience rather than applause. Now, at 81 years old, Tim Reid remains active in media and mentorship, choosing influence over visibility. With an estimated net worth of $3 million, his legacy reads as endurance, built on marriage that lasted, risks that bruised, and a career sustained long after the spotlight moved on. Brittany Murphy as Sarah Brittany. Ann Murphy was born on November 10, 1977, in Atlanta, Georgia. At 17 years old, Brittany Murphy played Sarah, a brief but luminous presence that hinted at her range, in Sister, 1994 to 1995. The appearance was small, but it opened a door to a career that would burn bright and fast. In 2007, she married Simon Monjack, whose charm masked instability. Friends later described isolation, financial chaos, and a slow narrowing of Brittany's world. While audiences still saw the girl from Clueless and the Force of 8 Mile, her private life grew fragile. Weight loss, respiratory problems, and heavy reliance on prescription medications became increasingly visible. Illness and fear converged at home. Chronic anemia, breathing difficulties, and overlapping medications left her physically depleted, even as rumors and scrutiny intensified. On December 20, 2009, Brittany collapsed at her Los Angeles home and was pronounced dead at 10:05 a.m. The official cause cited pneumonia, compounded by severe anemia and multiple prescription drugs. 5 months later, Monjack died with eerily similar symptoms, fueling years of unanswered questions. Brittany Murphy died at 32, her life and fortune, estimated near $10 million, caught in disputes and doubt. She was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park, Hollywood Hills, leaving behind performances that still ache with promise and a silence that never quite explained itself. Gabrielle Union as Sean. Gabrielle Monique Union was born on October 29, 1972, in Omaha, Nebraska. At 26 years old, Gabrielle Union played Sean, the poised, attractive woman who briefly enters Ray Campbell's professional orbit, in Sister, 1998 to 1999. The role was small but strategic, marking her transition from sitcom guest appearances to more high-profile film roles, and it quietly foreshadowed a career built on emotional resilience rather than light comedy. At 19, Gabrielle survived a violent armed robbery and rape at her workplace, an experience that left her with PTSD and a lifelong instinct to armor herself emotionally. As her visibility grew through films like Bring It On and later Bad Boys 2, success intensified the pressure to appear unbreakable. Her first marriage, to NFL player Chris Howard in 2001, became strained under that weight. She later admitted she entered it seeking safety rather than healing, and their divorce in 2006 reopened wounds she had buried beneath ambition. Her second marriage, to NBA star Dwayne Wade in 2014, brought genuine partnership, but also devastating physical reality. Gabrielle endured repeated miscarriages while battling adenomyosis, a painful condition that made carrying a pregnancy nearly impossible. Even as she led Being Mary Jane and earned critical acclaim, she privately navigated fertility treatments, ultimately welcoming daughter Kavya via surrogate in 2018. The joy arrived layered with years of loss she would later confront openly in her memoirs. Today, at 53 years old, Gabrielle Union remains active as an actress, author, and advocate. With an estimated net worth of $40 million, her story stands not as one of effortless success, but of survival shaped into purpose. Sherman Hemsley as Grandpa. Campbell. Sherman Alexander Hemsley was born on February 1, 1938, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. At 57 years old, Sherman Hemsley played Grandpa Campbell, the outspoken, old-school father of Ray Campbell and grandfather to Tia and Tamera. In Sister, 1995. He often brought blunt wisdom and generational tension into the household. The role connected his iconic past to a new generation, reminding audiences of his authority and timing without softening his edge. Despite decades of fame from the Jeffersons and Amen, Hemsley's later years were marked by withdrawal. Typecasting narrowed opportunities, and he deliberately stepped away from Hollywood's social machinery. He never married, living quietly with longtime partner Kenny Johnston, keeping his private life shielded while audiences continued to laugh at reruns that no longer reflected his reality. As his health deteriorated, he remained almost entirely out of public view. Diagnosed with lung cancer, Hemsley developed superior vena cava syndrome, a severe complication that weakened him rapidly. When he died at his El Paso home on July 24, 2012, at 74, the quiet he guarded in life turned into chaos after death as a bitter legal dispute erupted over his estate. His body remained unburied for months, while claims were contested between his longtime manager and a man asserting family ties. Eventually laid to rest with military honors at Fort Bliss National Cemetery, Sherman Hemsley left behind an estate estimated at $3 million, and a final chapter defined not by laughter, but by a dignity delayed. RonReaco Lee as Tyreek Scott. RonReaco Lee was born on August 27, 1976, in Decatur, Illinois. At 21 years old, RonReaco Lee played Tyreek "Ty" Scott, Tia Landry's loyal working-class boyfriend, in Sister Sister, 1997 to 1999. The role grounded the show's later seasons and gave Lee his first long-running romantic arc on network television. What followed was not collapse, but endurance. Lee carried the weight of being instantly recognizable without being industry-protected, moving through a decade of guest roles that demanded constant reinvention. He appeared across prestige and mainstream television, ER, The Shield, Monk, building a resume that looked strong on paper while rarely translating into stability. Films like Guess Who and Madea Goes to Jail kept him visible, yet the work arrived in fragments, never in stretches long enough to soften the pressure of staying relevant. The grind intensified in adulthood. As peers disappeared, Lee doubled down on consistency, finding renewed purpose as Jamal Woodson in Let's Stay Together, and later as Reggie Vaughn in Survivor's Remorse, a role that finally let him age on screen with complexity and authority. NAACP Image Award nominations followed, but even then, momentum felt earned rather than gifted. Today, at 49 years old, RonReaco Lee continues working steadily across television and film. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, his legacy is one of survival. Deon Richmond as Jordan Bennett. Deon Richmond was born on June 2, 1978, in New York City. At 19 years old, Deon Richmond played Jordan Bennett, Tamara Campbell's devoted boyfriend, a college-bound young man, in Sister Sister, 1997 to 1999. The role finalized his transition from child actor to young adult lead, quietly signaling that he was ready for a new chapter. Coming out of The Cosby Show, Richmond entered adulthood with a resume many actors never achieve, but also with a label that refused to loosen its grip. Hollywood remembered him clearly, but narrowly. Appearances in Scream 3 and Not Another Teen Movie kept him visible, while roles in Trippin' and Getting By showed flashes of charm and range that never fully translated into momentum. By the mid-2000s, the opportunities arrived less often and carried less weight. Films like National Lampoon's Van Wilder and Hatchet extended his screen life, while appearances in Teachers and later Psych felt more like echoes than reinventions. The industry moved forward, leaving behind actors who didn't disappear. Richmond worked, but quietly, without the safety net that early fame promised. Now, at 47 years old, Deon Richmond lives largely outside Hollywood's daily noise. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, His story remains one of early visibility followed by gradual silence. Not a collapse, but a slow fading that still carries the weight of everything that once seemed guaranteed. Alexis Fields as Davian Johnson. Alexis Fields was born in California on March 3, 1979. At 14 years old, Alexis Fields played Davian Johnson, a sharp-tongued, image-driven teenage rival within the twins' school world, in Sister, Sister, 1994 to 1999. The role strengthened the show's realism and expanded its social tension before her story quietly turned inward. Growing up as the daughter of Chip Fields and the younger sister of Kim Fields was both a door and a ceiling. Alexis worked consistently. Kenan and Kel, Moesha, the parent Hood. Yet Hollywood rarely allowed her to exist without comparison. Casting rooms saw lineage before individuality, and as teen roles faded, momentum slowed. She found herself orbiting the industry rather than being pulled to its center. Marriage shifted her priorities more than any career decision. In 2006, she married Kevin Jackson, choosing stability over visibility. Motherhood followed, Casey Jackson in 2008 and Caden Jackson in 2014, and with it came deliberate withdrawal. Projects like Jacked and Somebody Help Me arrived sporadically, but fame no longer dictated her worth. In 2025, at about 45 years old, Alexis Fields lives largely outside Hollywood's noise, focused on family and selective creative work. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, her story isn't tragic. It's quietly sobering, shaped by choices that cost visibility but preserved peace. Dorien Wilson as Terrence Winningham. Dorien. Leon Wilson was born on July 5, 1963, in Lompoc, California. At 31 years old, Dorien Wilson played Terrence Winningham, a polished, status-conscious adult professional who briefly entered the twins' lives as a romantic authority figure. In Sister, Sister, 1994 to 1996. The role added adult complexity to the series and reinforced Wilson's screen identity as confident and commanding. What followed, however, was a career defined by endurance rather than ascent. Wilson became one of television's most familiar faces without ever becoming indispensable. Shows like Dream On and later The Parkers made him recognizable but not protected. Appearances on Martin, Living Single, Friends, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air kept him working, yet stability always felt one cancellation away. His personal life remained restrained and private. Dorien married Joanne Wilson in 1986, long before fame peaked, grounding himself in family while Hollywood stayed unpredictable. As younger actors replaced familiar faces, Wilson pivoted, teaching, mentoring, and accepting that longevity would matter more than headlines. Later work on House of Pain and In the Cut reflected survival, not resurgence, a steady presence rather than a comeback. Today, at 62 years old, Dorien Wilson continues to work with quiet consistency. With an estimated net worth of $1 million, his story lands with emotional weight. Bianca Lawson as RonReaco Lee. Bianca Lawson was born on March 20, 1979 in Los Angeles, California. At 16 years old, Bianca Lawson played RonReaco Lee, the sharp-witted, stylish classmate who often challenged the twins socially and intellectually, in Sister, Sister, 1995 to 1997. The role strengthened the show's teen world credibility and quietly marked Bianca as a scene stealer whose presence elevated ensemble dynamics. From there, the tone shifts. Instead of exploding once and fading, Bianca endured. She moved through Buffy the Vampire Slayer as Kendra Young, a role that demanded physical intensity and left a cultural imprint despite its brevity, then re-emerged years later on Pretty Little Liars as Maya St. Germain. The work kept coming: Dawson's Creek, The Vampire Diaries, Teen Wolf, yet never in a way that boxed her in or burned her out. What made her path quietly startling was its discipline. She chose rhythm over reinvention, depth over spectacle, and matured on-screen into Queen Sugar as Darla Sutton, a role that allowed grief, addiction, and redemption to breathe. In 2025, at 46 years old, Bianca Lawson continues working steadily across television, respected for consistency rather than controversy. With an estimated net worth of $2 million, her story lands with a different kind of ache. Rolonda Watts as Vivica Shaw. Rolonda Garnell Watts was born on July 12, 1959, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. At 39 years old, Rolonda Watts played Vivica Shaw, a composed, no-nonsense professional who entered the twins' lives as an adult authority figure, in Sister, Sister, 1997. The role added gravitas and maturity to the series, bridging sitcom youth with real-world adulthood. What followed was not reinvention, but survival after a public peak. As host and owner of the syndicated talk show Rolonda, she walked away at its height rather than compromise her integrity. Hollywood welcomed her, but cautiously. She worked relentlessly across Days of Our Lives, The West Wing, and The Bold and the Beautiful, building credibility again from the ground up, one role at a time. Her voice became her second life. As announcer for Judge Joe Brown, later Sherry, and as a prolific voice actor on Curious George and the Penguins of Madagascar, Rolonda rebuilt influence without demanding the camera's gaze. Recognition came late, but it came. In 2024, she was inducted into the Television Academy's Silver Honor Society, a rare acknowledgement of endurance rather than hype. Today, at 66 years old, Rolonda Watts remains busier than ever, acting, voicing, teaching, and mentoring. With an estimated net worth of $3 million, her story closes not in decline, but in earned reverence. Esther Scott as Maddie. Esther Scott was born on April 13, 1953, in Queens, New York City. At 41 years old, Esther Scott played Maddie, the sharp-tongued, no-nonsense working-class woman who hovered around the twins' adult world, often delivering hard truths with humor and authority. In Sister, Sister, 1994. The role didn't chase laughs. It anchored reality, giving the series a tougher, grounded edge before her story moved quietly into the background. Esther's career unfolded without glamour, but never without work. She became one of those faces audiences recognized instantly, even if they couldn't name her. Moving from Full House to Party of Five, from The Steve Harvey Show to Beverly Hills, 90,210. Films like Boys in the Hood and later Dreamgirls placed her inside landmark stories, yet always just off-center, supporting worlds that rarely paused to spotlight her. It was steady labor, emotionally demanding and financially uncertain, the kind of career built on resilience rather than reward. As years passed, the pattern remained unchanged. Esther carried recurring roles on City Guys and later Heart of Dixie as Delma Warner, finally allowing her to age on screen with dignity. She appeared in You Got Served and The Birth of a Nation, still working, still dependable, even as recognition lagged far behind contribution. Sadly, on February 14, 2020, Esther Scott died in Los Angeles after suffering a heart attack. She was 66 years old. With no widely reported fortune and an estimated net worth under $1 million, her legacy rests not in wealth, but in presence. Nearly 3 decades later, Sister, Sister isn't just a sitcom. It's a time capsule of youth, hope, and paths that no one could have predicted. Some cast members found peace away from the spotlight. Others kept fighting inside an industry that never stops moving. but every one of them left a mark that still lingers today. So which cast member's journey surprised you the most? And whose story hurt the most to learn about? If this walk through their lives moved you, leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories TV never told you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.